the probable original end of this gospel, like that of St. Mark, would be this conclusion: shock. John, we don't know at what stage, would have had an afterthought. I missed that bit out. And so we have those precious addenda with the redressing of the balance with regard to the triple denial of Peter, and so on. In Mark, we see at the natural conclusion that he wants to leave the reader in this poise. These holy women leave the tomb empty in fear and great awe. There is an electric force in the air. It's the first wow of the early church, which went round the Mediterranean basin and shook it. My Lord and my God. Put yourself in the skin of Thomas as he said these words. Goose pimples, a shiver down the spine. We have John reporting, as he always does, words very close to the original. Doubting Thomas, unless I see in his hands the print of the nails, and put my finger into the place of the nails, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe. Does that sound familiar? We have, over the centuries, many cases of this attitude. But we also have the balance redressed. Things which shouldn't happen. It's as though sometimes the Lord had forgotten to complete the miracle, and bits are left behind, because normally he hides everything, but sometimes the job seems unfinished. Have you been to the likes of Lanciano, or Bolsena, or Orvieto, or Santarem? I could go on and on and on. And in our time, more accidents have happened, because more hosts are falling to the ground than before, and people have an itch to put them in water and dissolve them. But the Lord does not dissolve so quickly from the eyes of men. In this series of apparitions or visions or encounters, we have that same shock in flash after flash. Interesting that the holy women see more in the beginning than the men, but the men don't believe. And then we have that quiet scene when we have the three going back to what they're familiar with, the fishing. As it were, abandoning all hope of the morrow. And then it all starts again with this mysterious figure. But we have that suggestive language. No one dared to say anything, but they all knew it was the Lord. Dominus est. Bishop Athanasius Schneider is a very good writer, aware of what is actually going on and why. And in this little volume, he addresses the issue of the encounter with the Lord of Glory head on. I have recently been thinking quite a lot about what this means. And indeed, by chance, I have come across things which seem to indicate, not just from human source, but from the mystical order, that the intuition that one gets in spending time in adoration is actually true. This little volume, which came to me out of the blue from somewhere, contains all kinds of testimonies of things that have been picked up in the sacramental sphere. Things seen and known. the veil half lifted. And in one of these volumes, or one of these recent readings, I picked up this, which this morning I'd like to leave with you. I forget who it was, and I haven't been able to follow it up, but it sounded a bit close to the nerve and probably true. It was some privileged soul who picked this up from the Lord in fairly recent times. And see if it corresponds to your gut reaction, what we call the sensus fidelium. It was that this person was allowed to see something one day in church, when observing people going to meet the Lord of Glory. She could see what she could see, but then she was allowed to see something which she could not see with the eyes of the body. And a pattern seemed to be emerging. Those who were going up to meet the Lord and God of all, aware of what they were doing, and this is the bit, doing it in a way which was pleasing to the Lord and according to his rules, at least his positive will, shall we say, as he had instituted and desired in the depth of his sacred heart. Those, she observed, were receiving the fullness of what he had on offer, and were going away in bright light, touched on every level. Those, she noticed, who were going up, and on the interior and on the exterior level, were not doing what was in their power to do to be delicate towards the majesty of God. Let's be concrete. Receiving it in an irreverent way, and in a way which is in some way casual. You know what I mean. Were going away with a proportion of what they had brought. The Lord had come, but he was not able to give all that he wanted to, because at the moment of embrace he was being hurt. Observe lovers embracing. If they start to do or say something which they know to hurt, or even lack in delicacy in any other way at that point, it is a terrible pain to the lover. Transpose. Look at the way in which the holy women, and indeed the disciples and apostles, when they encountered His Majesty, used all their being, prostration, clinging to, crying out, silent adoration and recognition, and in all spontaneity and sincerity and authenticity expressed the encounter. Then there was a full encounter. One meeting and entering into the other and acting upon love. Look around our planet, at least our Western planet, and observe how much, first of all, on the level of the interior preparation has happened before the Easter sacrament, the proportion who went to the sacrament of reconciliation, the very minimum that the Church gives us still at Easter. Easter duties were never taken off. And those also who, with arms folded, received the Lord of Glory like another sweet. Adults, grandparents, children, indiscriminately, like a great horde, aggressing, I say, the Lord of angels, and causing those angels to weep across our planet. This is a victory for someone, and you know who. And so, against his will, as he's revealed to one mystic, he is obliged to lift the veil and to remind us now and again, it is the Lord.